So this is now our final pour. We've got two different mixes here, the lightweight floor, the dense power floated floor, and now a heavier ballast aggregate for this final lay, which will then bring us up to meet our existing floor. As we discussed in the very first video, this is obviously a really important floor, and it's been, I had a lot of traffic over it. It's got lots of cracking, but it's a beautiful floor nonetheless. So we've taken every precaution to protect this. We've got this screeding bar in here, which is set level with the floors that we've already laid. We've got, in places here, we've got a step, but that's due to this floor falling down. So we run this level, and then there'll be an opportunity to lift this so it comes flush with the floor here, which means it'll all run in one straight run. You can see these have been marked, these bits of the jigsaw puzzle have been marked up so that we can put these back together, and once this comes out and it's been pinned on the outside so that these pins can come out, and when that's gone off we can lift this board out, and then we can make up that gap and bring these to meet the same level. Okay, so we've started the pour, but just standing here, I can feel a huge amount of wind coming in through, well, both these doors. And obviously they need to be open so we can have access to laying it, but just be aware that will potentially suck moisture out, and that can potentially lead to cracking. So it's just creating that stable environment. So as soon as we've got this laid, then it will be closed up, and it will create a nice, calm environment for that drying, setting process to take place. So here we're going to show using a screeding board to create the level. So we've got our existing floor there, obviously, which is our fixed point, and then we've got our other fixed point here, which is this board which we put in, and then it's just screeding it back and forwards just to move the excess, and that also brings fat to the surface. You can see it's just rolling that material back and creating a nice level surface behind. So that was screeding it. So as you saw, just gently bring it backwards and forwards and working it along and drawing the mix with it. And now it's going to be tamped, which will then just, you can see it just bounces and brings that finer aggregate to the surface to give a much finer tolerance to the floor finish. So the purpose of this tamping and screeding, it helps to push the heavier stones down to the bottom, so they sink down to the bottom, and then a finer aggregate is drawn to the top, so when it's being floated up, you're not moving heavy bits of stone around on the surface. You're just gently floating that back down so you get a nice even crust finish on the slab. One of it where we can come from that way. Right, so we sort of reached the end. And as you saw, this slab here is a combination of synthetic fibre on this end and then sisal fibre on that end. And I think the important thing to notice is there's no difference. They all look absolutely identical. They're both doing the same job. The fibres are knitting the limecrete together. As you saw, it's a little bit more time consuming, a bit more of a faff feeding it in. Sometimes I think that bit of extra effort is worth it, but you know, there are options, alternatives to create the same result. Laying slabs like this can be fairly intense, fairly full, fairly pressured, but as you've seen, Mike and Vince have kept to a system. They've wet edges, they're cleaning up afterwards, they're getting all of the corners sorted, so at the end you don't have ragged bits that you need to pick up, you don't have a huge great mess around. This is so vital to get the cleanliness of the whole process, and you end up with a much more consistent finish. If you're laying slabs over the top of it, then obviously you can lay those slabs after about a month. So it's firmed up sufficiently. With flags over the top, it will still dry out through those. But if you can leave it as long as possible, it's obviously better because you're not putting stress on the floor. If you do traffic over it after about a month, then it's a good idea to put boards over it so it spreads the load. You're not putting any point loading on it. But you know, all this is exactly the same as if it was a concrete floor. You just extend those time scales just a little bit more to give it a bit more drying. Plan it so you don't have to go on it. And if you do, just make sure it's very cautious and you spread any load. We'll close up these doors so that, as I said, we are getting a draft through here, so we'll make it a much calmer environment in here. Okay. So what we're just going to put a few blocks in there. For this floor, we're going to polish it all. So we'll leave it for 3 months. We'll then assess it, see what sort of moisture there is in it, and obviously we're going into the winter now, so with moisture levels going up and temperatures going down, it's obviously going to slow up that rate of drying. So we need to assess that, bearing in mind the conditions that we're going into. After 3 months, as I say, we'll assess it and then we'll look at polishing it back, and you'll be able to see the difference between the slab at the back there, which is lightweight, which is going to be a slightly terrazzo sort of finish. You're cutting through that softer stone. And then the polished floor here, which is a tighter grained finish on that one because of the smaller aggregate. And then this is what would be considered a more conventional slab with ballast aggregate, so 25 mil down to fines. So it'll be a nice example of how those finishes vary. And then this is going to be a workshop, so it'll be used constantly. It'll be under fairly heavy use, and you'll be able to see how that changes and wears over time.